confirming that Windows 7 is using SSD optimizations. I took the plunge and installed Windows 7 on my computer. Even better, I installed it on my new Intel X25M. Got to love that SSD goodness. Windows and NBSP, Vista was known to thrash, throttle, and otherwise wear out an SSD. Apparently Windows and NBSP 7 addresses some of the more serious issues. However, I am more concerned that maybe Windows 7 is not using those optimizations. I am paranoid, but at the cost of the SSD, ouch, I want to get as much life out of it as possible. Is it possible to confirm that Windows 7 is using all of the cool new SSD optimizations? That it has properly confirmed that your drive is an SSD? Thanks for your feedback. Contrary to the Q&A, Superfetch is running on this system. And given the answer to the command line I was given, I think that Windows and NBSP 7 is not using optimizations. Very annoying. Is there something I can do to make Windows 7 treat my drive like the SSD that it is? Also, what is this talk of the drive alignment? Is there a way to confirm that as well? Also, disk defragging was enabled. I disabled it. FYI, the Windows Experience Index for the system is 7.8 for the drive.
If you open a command prompt window, as an admin, and type the following command, Windows 7 will tell you if it's detected that your drive supports the trim command and thus has set Windows to use the full range of SSD optimizations automatically. You should get something back like disable delete notify equals 0 if your drive is being treated as an SSD. The full Q&A that the Windows 7 engineering team posted about SSDs is here.
The cool new SSD optimizations are largely eyewash, hardly cool and certainly not new. Microsoft certainly did not reinvent the wheel here. When a solid-state drive is present, Windows 7 will disable disk defragmentation, Superfetch, Ready Boost, as well as boot and application launch prefetching. As you can see, these are just some basic tweaks known to owners of solid-state disks for a long time. The only notable advancement in Windows 7 is support for the trim command, which deals with the way that data is written to NAND memory. The real killers, to sound a bit scary, smile, are virtual memory and temp folder usage, which Microsoft has not addressed at all. You will have to take care of your SSD yourself if you really want to have cool optimizations. Here are some links for you. SSD Windows Registry Tweaks, NTFS Performance Hacks. Also make sure to align the partition of your SSD and make proper use of a RAM disk.
To my knowledge, currently there's no simple method that would cover to all possible cases. Still, in most practical cases, it should be enough to check the following. As mentioned here, sutil behavior query disable delete notify should be 0, otherwise trim is disabled in your OS. Still, this does not mean that OS recognizes your SSD. If OS recognizes your SSD drive, Windows 7 should remove it from the defragmentation schedule. Win 8 and Win 10 explicitly show media type equals SSD in their defragment and optimize drives tool. If this part is okay, this means that your OS do recognize your SSD and do send trim commands. Still, this does not mean that SSD receives them. Next, check Word 169. bit 0 in your drive information. This could be done, for example, using Intel SSD Toolbox or its Sentinel tool. Trial version is enough. Probably, there are more tools to do that. This bit should be 1 if your SSD supports trim. Most modern SSDs do support it. Still, this does not mean that the trim commands sent by your OS are properly passed to your SSD. For example, your RAID controller might not pass them properly. Actually, it's okay to start from this point. There are few experimental methods to see the evidence that trim is actually working. The most simple and automated way is to use the trim check tool. Side note, disk compression, disk encryption, and write cache buffer flushing should be off. However, there's still one more caveat here, the JAT features. To check if your SSD support JAT, take a look at Word 69, bit 14 and bit 5. Once again, the Intel SSD Toolbox should be able to show them, in most cases. If both JAT bits are 1, you're lucky. The tool should give you trim is working almost immediately, if it's actually working. Still, you might need to reboot your PC, and/or launch the disk optimization, if you're using Windows 8 10s. Otherwise, things got more difficult. The tool may give you, conclusion column trim appears to be not working, or has not kicked in yet, for a few weeks. And then, data is neither unchanged nor empty and LT, ... and GT, conclusion column indeterminate, but this does not actually mean that your trim is not functioning. On the other hand, there's still a chance that you would get, conclusion column trim appears to be working, one day. Try leaving your PC idle overnight, as well as rebooting and launching the disk optimization, to let SSD's built-in garbage collector do his work. If trim check shows, trim appears to be working, this almost certainly means just that, unless some ridiculous third-party tool was intentionally writing zeros here and there, and placed zeros above the test data as well. For those who interested, some technical details, as far as I understand them, are here. The developer of the Sentinel tool claims that his tool uses a different approach, based on device_trim_ descriptor. And that this method alone should do the job. And that it won't even give a false positive if RAID controller is not passing trim commands correctly.
I think what you're looking for is a program called Intel SSD Toolbox, but it doesn't look like you can download it currently because it has some bugs. I wouldn't worry too much though. Wearing out an SSD takes a very long time. I've read that in normal use cases, a good SSD will generally outlast a normal hard drive.
Very